Welcome to Origin Stories. I'm RD.
I'm Parrot.
We're telling stories behind the digital art revolution
Each week we interview top artists.
and live stream with the community.
Let's go. Today is tomorrow's origin story.
Chewy Stoll, welcome to Origin Stories.
Thank you for having me, Roger. I appreciate it.
This is fun. I feel like it's been a while. We've been going back and forth on Twitter a bit. I remember involved in a heartbreak of a bidding war and a past artwork of yours. I feel as though we've come full circle, and here we are today.
Yeah. I was actually just talking about that moment with one of my roommates, about how that was like the first time our paths crossed. And that kind of it planted the seed, at least is how I view it. You know, we didn't really initially create a connection or relationship, but it kind of we're like, hey, we're aware of each other, we're in the same space. And then here we are a few months later, just naturally talking on a podcast. So I think that's pretty cool.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So I don't want to bias it too much. I do see on Twitter, you're referring to quote unquote making worlds, and you referred to that in a few different places. But we may get to that in a minute. Let me take a step back and ask you the magic question. Chewy Stoll, what is your origin story?
I mean, it started when I was 13. So I mean, 8th grade. I would say no to hanging out with my friends, and I would sit on YouTube and go through all the videos I could and say, hey, I'm doing graphic design, $5, hit me up on Skype. And every single video I could find, I would send the video, I message people. I was just trying to get my name out there. So I mean, that's where it all started. It was like Call of Duty graphic design for YouTube when I was 13. That was kind of the first moment where I was like, this is something that I'm passionate about. I can see a future, not financially, but just I could see myself spending all of my time doing this. So I think that's kind of where it all started.
Yeah. So when you were 13, right, that first time that you charge $5 and say, I'm here to do this, what's the thought process at that moment in time? Are you thinking it's clear as day, this is my path? Are you kind of in that teenage hustle entrepreneurial mode, like you don't necessarily have the grander vision, but you're just hustling in that moment? How does it look to you mentally at that time?
Definitely the latter of the two. It wasn't like, oh, I want to make money doing art, or I want to be an artist at the time. I was fascinated by the sense of community in the Call of YouTube videos, right? And so that was kind of the first point where I felt like I was welcomed in a community. So it wasn't necessarily the artist that grabbed in, or the artistry, or the, kind of like financial aspect, but it was more so I have a skill that is valuable to someone else. They feel the need to pay me, or that is an option for them. And so it kind of just opened my eyes to what's possible. Being the generation that we grew up with the internet, so all sorts of possibilities, all sorts of routes that we can take. And so it was less so about this is what I want to do, and more so kind of just this is a possibility for me. If I don't want to go to college when I'm older or whatever, this worked for me somewhat, enough for me to feel hopeful at least. So I think ultimately like a sense of hope, at least.
A sense of hope. So it begins as a sense of hope. And do you remember, or can you give a story around, I don't know, one of your first $5 clients even? How does that look? How does that feel? And what do you create?
Yeah, so I mean, it actually kind of happened pretty quick. I would stay up until 6 a.m. just posting these comments. And then when I would wake up, there would be all these requests on Skype saying, hey, yeah, I'm interested. And so one night, I guess it was just divine timing. I woke up the next morning, there was 30, 40 requests. So it felt good to be wanted for something that you could offer. For example, my artistic vision. There were enough people for me to feel confident in my ability that someone else might want this. But obviously $5 is way too little, but I mean, I was 13, so I had no idea what I was doing. But it was a lot of revisions. It was, I would spend hours and hours trying to make it perfect for them. And the $5 wasn't even in my mind. I just wanted the person to have a product that they were happy with.
That's amazing. So tell us a little bit more about, so you said Skype, right? Skype was where you would get those requests, or that was where you would put yourself out there. Yeah. So how did that process look? How would you advertise yourself, and how would you even get those responses?
So I had this, I wrote out this message that I would just copy and paste to every single YouTube video I can find. It's like, hi, my name's Chewy. I'm 13. I do graphic design. My portfolio is here. My Skype is this. And then I would just copy and paste it. And if people message me, there would be a message on Skype. It's similar to like Twitter DMs where you have all your messages and then new ones pop up. So it was just flooding my presence into other people's videos, which looking back was not what I should be doing. But again, I was 13 and I just wanted to get my name out there. And so I would go to the most popular YouTube videos and posted within the most recent amount of time. So just uploaded, and I would just spam my message until YouTube wouldn't let me post it anymore. I needed people to see that I existed, and that was the way that I figured I could do it.
Man, and you know what? It's pretty brilliant at the time because I mean, number one, right? That level of hustle at 13 is incredible. But number two, I feel like the fact that you said you were 13, you get the benefit of the doubt. It's when you say that, no one's going to come back at you too harshly. It's all right. This is someone looking, he's younger and he's trying to get his name out there. So give us an example of an opportunity or two. Like, what were the things you're designing at that stage?
So I don't know if YouTube still has the same structure, but at the top of the YouTube page was like a banner almost. So it was like, I want to say 1500 pixels by 500. And so I would just create banners. It would be either their online name, artist name, their YouTube name. It would provide links to their different socials, like their Twitch account. So a lot of information structure or information design, where like name in the middle, links smaller here. So it wasn't necessarily complex or very creative. It was just not a lot of people knew how to do that themselves because it did incorporate a 3D program. There were some aspects that weren't just like self-intuitive. You had to sort of know what you were doing, I guess.
So then walk us forward. How does that hit whatever the next stage is, where maybe you start to step into some of your personal creativity and maybe overall the initial 13-year-old spam YouTube $5, which I love that hustle, right? How does that then progress to the next step?
So there's actually a period of absence from artistry because at the time soccer was my main thing. So my life was devoted to soccer, and then art was sort of my own free time. So I'd say probably 3-4 years pass. I'm now 17, 18. And then I picked up a camera. So it switched from that 13-year-old hustler to I want to capture the world from the way I see it. And so that kind of incorporates where I learned my sense of composition. You can't just manipulate the world. It's just that you have the things and you have to work with it. So I was a photographer for maybe a year or two. I would shoot weddings, I would shoot video game events, portraits, the list goes on. But after the photography, that's when I picked up 3D seriously. So it goes from 13-year-old YouTube Chewy to photographer Chewy to here we are now as 3D Chewy.
Talk about that transition. So photography Chewy, right? You're in there. You've taken the next step, and you're now doing like you said, you're doing events and you're doing different things. The beginnings of that stage, actually, to take even one smaller step back, do you have that thought in your mind of, no, this is my next phase. This is what I'm going to be doing, photography, or are you viewing that as a next stepping stone? I always love. By the way, just to give you a little context on why I asked that question, I always love to know, and the answer is range. It ranges across the spectrum of someone who goes from phase to phase, is living in that moment, or all the way on the other side. There have been a few examples of someone who's like, no, I'm getting here, and they know where that there is, and then how those steps are getting around to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think at the time I picked up a camera, it wasn't that I wanted to be a photographer. It was, like you said, it was a stepping stone to my creative, I don't even know what to call it. I guess creative suitcase of tools. So it started with the 3D, and then photography was something that I felt like it offered me a new sense of the artist world. So I used it as a stepping stone, but like you said, there was that greater picture in the distance of, I don't want to be a photographer, but want to be skilled in as many mediums as I can so that I can express my mind in whatever way suits that best, whether it's a photograph, whether it's a painting, whatever. So I knew that photography wasn't permanent for me, but I felt the need to learn all the skills incorporated in case there was a time where I needed to use that in a current project. So it was more so just accumulating skill sets and putting them in my back pocket in case I would need them later on.
Interesting. So it's that mindset of a generalist, right? A generalist versus a specialist. It's like you said, acquiring those tools, adding them to your toolbox, but then being able to all in the name of that ultimate expression, being able to express yourself, leveraging as many of those tools as possible.
Yeah, because it was never, I never strived to be like a technical creator. I don't pay much attention to how I get to where I get. It's more so I just believe that if I keep putting my emotion into the art, that's going to shine through more than my technical skill, because I don't try and learn all the technical aspects. I just need to get my emotion into a visual. That's all I care about. And how I get there, like I said, it doesn't necessarily matter how I get there, but if the final product represents the emotion that I want to express, whether that's a photograph, whether that's just a 5-minute sketch, then it fills that need for me, which is ultimately my goal.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. It's that purity of creative expression above all else, but then it's respect for the individual mediums, but acknowledging that you're not boxed into any of them, that you can quite easily pivot or mix and match. Yeah, that's interesting. So Chewy, one thing that I like to do before we get to your NFT stop on this journey, I like to go back to the beginning of an Instagram account from time to time. And in this case, that took me back to July 7th, 2012 to a photo that was called Hit the Gap.
Yeah, I know exactly what photo you're talking about. I don't know if both other people are in that picture. I know one is, but those are my best friends. And so that before creative journey happened, I would do parkour. So I would climb roofs. I would jump roof to roof, looking back, obviously not the smartest thing that I could be doing, but that's where we got our adrenaline rush. It was, being places we weren't supposed to, doing things that were risky, sort of just that rush of life feeling, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. It's this beautiful photo of the midair capture of, I don't know if it was you or your friend or what, but it was someone was midair jumping from roof to roof.
Yeah, that actually is me. That is me with short hair, and which probably won't happen again. But
that's perfect. It's a good photo, because I never know what I'll find. Sometimes the Instagram account's cut off, and there's an art piece that was, things behind it were deleted. In this case, I love going back and seeing photos that were up from the true beginning of an account.
Yeah, and I wanted to leave those up because I think a huge part of an artist or a creator or anyone with some sort of a presence online is people want to connect with other people, regardless if they know them in real life or not. And so I think all of those pictures and posts before my 3D renders sort of offer a little bit of insight to like what kind of person I am, just a little bit of context to like who Chewy is behind just the art. Because I think if you only see someone posting art, it feels sort of robotic almost. There's like a disconnect between them being a human because all you see is art. You don't see anything about their personal life. And so I wanted to leave those up because I did used to just like climb power lines and do things that might be fun. And if they're not, oh well, but there's an option to connect with me, I guess.
And I feel as though that lines up with your mission, right? That lines up with that mission of creative expression, where it's all about what you want to get across. And so it's this, from my perspective, at least, just sitting here with you for 10 minutes, it's just that sense of comfort and peace about who you are and what you're feeling and what you're putting out there and what you're creating. It feels very synchronous to me. Yeah.
That makes me happy to hear. That does.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah. So let's continue walking down this road, walking down Chewy's road. So it goes from 13-year-old hustler, right, on YouTube, to picking up photography, then continuing to add skill sets on behalf of that that end game, that end goal of creative expression. Walk us that next step forward. Start getting us closer to the NFT space.
So we're now in the timeline of like pivotal moment in my life, without a doubt. With the photography, with the parkour stuff, my friend and I would combine those and we would make short videos of us doing parkour. So when I was 17, I actually fell 20 feet from the ledge, parkour. And that just, it sent me down a spiral. I mean, I was put into a coma for 9 days. Like they had to bring a priest in, say, hey, like your child might not make it. So I woke up from that coma and like immediately my mindset was different. Everything I cared about was different. The things that I like gave my time to different. Everything changed after that moment. And so that's when I decided to go all on art, because I needed an outlet and art was the only thing that could do that for me. So I started doing everydays, and then here we are, still doing everydays.
And here we are. And how long, where are you in the everydays process in terms of an overall timeline?
Today is, once I do today, it will be 241.
Amazing.
So the plan was to do a year and then see how I felt after that. But I have this feeling that I just won't stop doing them, because my art in its entirety serves as a visual diary, essentially. So from that incident, it is documenting my headspace. Whereas like there's Beeple in his everydays who sort of reflects upon the large picture. My everydays are more so introspective, and they look at the journey inward, you know, state of mind over X months, X years. And so that way, let's say I do 3 years of everydays, I can look back and see each day where my head was at, what I was thinking about, how I was feeling. And so it kind of just gives me that permanent history for myself. If nothing else, like I said, I can look back and see how my own mind has developed over that period of time.
So the beginning of that process, the very first everyday, so you said, you know, obviously you had this horrible event and you're put into a coma, you come around outside of it. It sounds like it was a pretty, it sounded, at least the way it was presented, a bit of an immediate decision of like, everything changes now. And then you had art as a mechanism. Did you view it as like a recovery mechanism? I imagine there must have been a measure of pain, right? A measure of physical distress coming out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it was sort of that combative measure. It was basically therapy in a way. Because I had tried, you know, talking to a therapist, doing the whole ABC checklist of here's how you heal. And none of those gave me that sort of like cathartic feeling that I needed, where I walked away and said, yes, this is what I needed. But when I did that first everyday, it was that feeling, and it made so much sense, and I didn't need to know anything else. I took it and I ran with it, because that feeling was, I can't even describe it. It provided me things that nothing else has offered me, and it has literally healed me in ways that I can't describe. And so I just keep doing that.
That's amazing.
Each and every day. And like, there are some days where it's lazy work, or it's, you know, it's work that I don't put time into, but it's less important of each individual piece. It's sort of like Gestalt's theory, where the sum is greater than the equal of the parts. Like the everydays in its entirety is more important than just picking one piece out and saying, oh, like this piece is bad, right? It's more about the overarching picture.
Did you call it everydays from square one? Like from the very first one, did you say this is every day?
Yeah. So on my Instagram, there's day one, and I have this little thing, this little caption of saying, this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to see how long I can do this for X, Y, and Z reasons. So on day one, I knew what I was getting into. I knew that this was the beginning journey. It was an indefinite amount of time, but I knew that this was the path that I was taking.
Take us back to day one, post one, everyday one. Where are you? Where is the mind on that day, and what do you end up creating?
So the piece is called Tangled, and that was August 4th of last year. So we're a few months into the pandemic. Everything's weird. I have no idea what my life is like. I was on furlough from my job, so income was not a thing. I had all this time on my hands. And I just felt tangled in all these webs of life. I had all these paths I could take, all these things I could do, and I had no idea which one I wanted to do. Decided to pick one, and doing art was the one, and I was every day. So the piece for that day was just sort of representing, it's me sitting in the middle of the composition, and there's wires going around it, which represent like the pathways of life. And it's me just looking around, like picking one. And so every day was that one. And it sort of broke all the rest of the webs, and now it's just the everyday path.
It's incredible even at this stage, and I imagine it may even become more incredible as you get it, let's say you get to year 2 and year 3 and beyond and on down the road.
Yeah,
that looking back at a day one tangled, right? A day one tangled and looking around a bit and having all those webs. Do you feel now on what's that 241? Do you feel now on 241 looking back, does that feel incredible? Are you starting to feel the passage of time since?
It feels really weird, because I mean, the way I go about my life is I just put my head down and I work. Like I just zone out. There'll be like 2 months that go by and I'm like, oh, I should call my mom. I should talk to my friends. Like I'm just so focused. And so it feels way longer than 241 days, but sometimes my friends will be like, oh, your piece is really good. And I don't even give myself that time to reflect. I'm just working. Like I just am just constantly putting time into my craft, and I don't give myself that time to sort of reflect. But since you bring it up, like, yeah, it does feel surreal. It doesn't feel like this is all within the same 365-day period.
Yeah.
I've lived lifetimes within these everyday processes.
It is pretty incredible, you know, it is pretty incredible. And you have a couple layers of it, right? Because I just think the NFT space in general is like that. But now also in terms of your creative process and your everyday process, it adds another layer to that. So maybe it even magnifies it a step further.
Definitely.
So, okay, August, Chewy kicks off. When and how does the phrase NFT or how does that hit your radar first? How was that presented?
So it kind of was a snowball effect. I like started the days in August. Nobody was looking at my work, and I mean nobody. Like there, one person would like it, and I would look at the analytics, and it was like this piece has been viewed by 20 people. So I mean, no one was seeing it, and so I'd say August to October 3rd, I think was the day. About what is that, like almost 3 months of every days, no one's noticing my work, and I'm just still posting them on every site. And then I'm sitting in class, and this big account retweets one of my series, and I mean, from that moment, just like people were flooding to my page, and like hundreds of followers were coming. And so somewhere between that week or so, someone reached out and would say, hey, you should check out Rarible. And I had no idea what NFT is. So kind of gave me the rundown. They paid for my first mint, and they were like, I know you're going to do good in this space. You should check it out. So I did. I posted a piece to Rarible, and then, so that was mid-October. And that was the point. Was someone reached out and said, hey, this is a NFT site, sort of gave me all the information I needed, and they just sent me on my way. And it made so much sense. It felt like I had been there before, and that it felt like home, and it felt like that missing puzzle to my journey was it was like I needed this at that time. It was perfect.
Interesting. And then as you start to dive into the space, and you said you got that amazing nudge and go here's gas or whatever it ends up being, is Rarible the universe to you? Where do you then start to expand vision to what becomes the NFT landscape?
So Rarible, I didn't give it as much importance as maybe I should have, but it was that key to the NFT community. So when he told me Rarible existed, in my mind, I just went, if there's Rarible, there has to be other things. So I just went straight to Google, and I just started finding out as much as I could about NFTs as possible, researching just like the blockchain in general. It fascinated me, the whole almost ecosystem has been existing in like an idle state, to me at least, for so long. And so I just needed to know everything. It didn't matter whether it was going to be useful to me. I just needed to know everything about NFTs. And so I just dedicated months to that. It was just everything about NFTs.
What were the most powerful resources for you during that formative stage? Because I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, you know, close to the same period of time, I'm in my own deep dive. I'm in my own research and lay of the land and you know, learning the nuances of a platform by platform by platform and layer of the blockchain by layer of the block. You know, all that stuff is happening
Absolutely.
too. So I'm fascinated with your process as well. So what are some shout outs to some of the resources, the people, and the things that helped you most get up to speed?
I think the that comes to mind is Loopify, and just the Twitter community in general. I remember seeing a thread or a post he tweeted, and something about the structure of his tweet made my mind just attached to the way he approached it. For some reason, I need to know everything that Loopify node, like what he was doing, because it seemed like he had this grasp on the community, and the things that he said made sense. They were unbiased. They provided information for newcomers. So I sort of latched on to him, and then through his account, I met new collectors. People picked up my pieces, and I would just spam them with questions. I would ask them, what should I be doing? What does the space look like from your perspective? What are things that you notice? Just sort of trying to gather as much information. But I think I took the most out of just following NFT related people on Twitter and just diving in, you know, having those conversations, at like admitting that you don't know as much as you think you do, and being open, learning about the space. Because if you can open up your learning mind or whatever, you can absorb that information way quicker and then help other people sort of bring into the space. But definitely, I think Loop was the first to sort of draw me in as far as like resources go.
Yeah, shout out Luke for sure.
Yeah.
He's a real one. You know, these themes line up. This is how my mind works. Is themes and stories and contexts. You know, and
Right.
as you're telling me these stories, you're telling me a story about generalism in the sense of picking up a lot of skill sets and being open to that. And it was all in the name of the creative expression. Then you get exposed to the NFT landscape, and then you're going around and asking questions and opening yourself up and picking up frames of experience from multiple sources, multiple resources, and stacking them up in your own mind. And I imagine it's to the same end game, your form of creative expression. How can you best, you know, cut through and get there?
Definitely. Yeah. And I think something that's really beautiful about the space was it was the first time I felt genuinely welcomed, like as a human being. You know, my whole life I didn't really have that sense of community, right? I had my family, I had my friends, but there's something extra special about how that group of people that you interact with daily, you get to know them, you know, in group chats, Discord. The NFT space was the first sort of community that just with open arms welcomed me in, and it allowed me to create the art that I felt that I needed to create. I didn't feel pressured to create this or that. The NFT space just almost allowed me to say, be you, we will accept you, and we will love you. And that gave me the confidence and the motivation to make the art that I wanted to make, and not art that I felt like I needed to make for others. So it was a very clear break in that stereotype of making what I wanted to make versus making art for other people.
Amazing. What's the first piece on Rareable when you end up going through the learning process and minting something? What is it that you mint, and why do you make that choice?
So that piece is Sunday Mornings with You. It was, it's a piece that represents sort of just like morning tranquility, basically, just spending time with loved ones, and just like how, I mean, I had trouble capturing it individual because I don't think it's something that can be fully captured, but it basically just represents that feeling of waking up, feeling actually loved. There's like sun coming through the window, flowers everywhere. And it's sort of just that nice break from the real life that we've all been living, because like I said, COVID was a thing for, it was still kind of, we were all adjusting to it. And so it was just sort of like, it was almost escapism piece. It needed to be anywhere but real life. So I made this little world that I could escape to, and it was like a daydream for me. And that first piece, that when I made it and I finished it, it was like, wow, this is my best piece. I knew immediately at the time that that was just my best piece that I had made up until then. And so, and it represented the vulnerability that I was looking for. When I was looking at it, the connection that I had with it made me feel vulnerable. It made me want to talk to people. And so it was kind of a motivator for me personally, was if I show the world this vulnerability of me, then there's no going back. So it was like my all-in moment. I put it was my all-in chips, and I'm like, I have a full house. I'm ready to go.
So you have this moment, you have this all-in moment, you're ready to go, you put it out there, and then what?
So I think a week goes by and no attention or whatever. And then it does get picked up. I was sitting in class. It was like 8 a.m. and I get notifications like someone purchased your piece. And that feeling was just so surreal to me, because I was doing commission work for $20, $25. And then it was 0.5 Ethereum was my very first sale, or 0.6. At the time, that was mind-blowing to me. It was just so wild to me that I didn't need to tell anyone why they should buy my art, or I didn't need to explain to people why it was valuable. Someone just had a connection with it, and just like that, like, it started a collector-artist relationship. And that's what kept me in it, was that my art meant enough to someone that they had to buy it, and also start some sort of friendship between that. And that is just, I mean, that's priceless.
That's amazing. And especially that it comes out of the clear blue sky. I enjoy that there was a week, that you posted and it didn't just get snapped up, that you had that week to go by, and then you're randomly in class 8 a.m. and then boom, it happens. Yeah.
And I think I ended up just leaving class. Like, it was so crazy to me. I turned off my computer and I like called my mom. I was like, mom, you'll never believe what happened. It was just, I mean, it was just everything I needed at the right time. It was just continuous timing, one after another. And it felt right.
That's amazing. Then what? So you have this moment, and where is your mind at that stage as to what will I do next in the NFT space on the heels of such a surreal moment?
So that it was definitely, it was just continuing the snowball. It made me just want to be a better artist in general. It made me want to continue to open up to the world and allow the world to see who I am, kind of just break down those barriers that I've put up since my accident of protecting myself, and just opening up. So it was that extra push to just open up, make the best art that I could, be the most me that I could be, right? And those were my two things: would just make good art and be you. Everything else will fall into place. So I just ran with that.
Make good art and be you. I like that.
Yeah.
It's a good life. It's a good life mantra.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very important, especially with art, because most of my art comes from those kind of like deeper concepts, right? It's death, it's passing, it's suffering, it's loss. The things that words are kind of hard to make sense, I guess. It's hard to articulate those feelings with words. And so with visuals, it gives me that bridge to, these are the things I'm feeling. I can't put them into words, but look at it. This is what I have to show you.
Yeah, it's in some ways it's a simpler, but in a lot of ways it's a much deeper language than the words that we have, which box us in, naturally.
100%.
All right, so then I have to ask, where Rarible is the starting line. Where does it then branch off into MakersPlace and then SuperRare?
So there's a gap between Rarible and MakersPlace, which was the next one. I want to just rush into the NFT space, just start uploading pieces. I wanted to my biggest thing was community, I wanted to build a sense of community, whether that was people or it was thousands of people. that was my main goal. So I took time to just sort of invest my time into getting to know people, seeing who I kind of meshed with better than others, and getting into those Discord groups, finding where I felt most motivated, most excited, and then applying to MakersPlace. I remember I made a vulnerability series, which looking back was not that great, and I'm surprised I got accepted with those pieces. But it was raw emotion that, like, going back to the technical, I wasn't worried about making the piece look good. It was just getting my emotion to the piece, right? And so the process of applying and getting accepted, I think, was 2-3 weeks. And that's sort of where things, took off, was MakersPlace. That was the pivotal moment in the NFT career, that it brought a lot of eyes to my work. That platform I'm really thankful for because of their Discover page. You see all the activity. And so you can discover artists, you can discover collectors, but getting accepted into MakersPlace was definitely pivotal for the NFT.
Do you know at that time how pivotal it will be? Like, what are your perceptions of MakersPlace as you're even applying and then ultimately getting accepted? How are you considering it relative Rareable, which you have experience with?
So it was less of comparing the platforms to each other and more so just being appreciative that I get to be a part of this movement, right? Like, there's sort of that secret feeling, because other people in real life don't, and I say real life, I mean off screen, right?
Of course, yeah.
They don't know about NFTs. They don't know about this space. So it's sort of that like included feeling of part of something that the general population has no idea is going on. So it's more so just happy to be in that space. And it was nice to branch out. But it wasn't like, oh, this is better than that, or I need to get here. It was just me enjoying my time and exploring different paths.
And that's also the platform where we then meet for the first time, right?
Yeah, on the Life Semester piece, yeah.
Life Semester, which I loved, still to this day love. And hearing you go over your own experience with MakersPlace and what you appreciate about it, I did stumble upon you. I stumbled upon you on the activity feed of MakersPlace, saw a visual that really resonated with me. It's this, you use the term worlds a lot, right? It seems to me, at least, this world that incorporates, emojis and colors, and there's a lot going on there. I just straight up enjoyed it. And I dove off of that piece to learn a little bit more about you, to take a look at some of your other stuff. And then, of course, circled right back to ultimately place a bid, and then get in a bidding war with shout out to Matt Kymin on that, who is the collector of Life Semester. I guess selfishly, my selfish question, talk to us about that piece, Life Semester.
Yeah, so that, it kind of just incorporates, the chaos that 2020 was. For me, at least personally, there was sort of a period of wandering aimlessly before those everydays. It was, my job, it was dropping out of school. There was just so many things in my life that, from an outside perspective, it felt like my life was falling apart, but it was exact opposite. It was me almost spring cleaning all of the nonsense, not nonsense, but things that weren't serving the purpose that I needed them for, and just sort of like organized chaos, basically. Like, all of these things are happening in 2020. Nothing is making sense. Nothing even feels real. And then the art piece is just basically like a frame from that year of just, it's chaotic, but it's organized. It's beautiful. It's also disgusting, right? There's like, it's love it.
Yeah. How do you keep perspective during that phrase, how you just put it? Life from someone else's perspective, it might look like it's falling apart, but there's actually this organized chaos to it, and you're making the moves that you need to make, right? How are you staying confident within yourself, understanding, no, this is exactly what I need to be doing, even though maybe a lot of others might look at it and say, what is he doing?
Yeah. And honestly, I have to say thanks to my mom for this, because we have a sign in the house that I grew up. There's a sign right before you go in the kitchen that's just, whatever you are, be one, right? And so I kind of just held that with me. And there were times where I doubted myself, where it's like, is this what I should be doing? Should I be leaving a stable job? Should I be leaving a degree that I'm almost done with? You know, I was 3 years into my graphic design degree, and the last year I dropped out. So there was a lot of uncertainty, because growing up, there were these stereotypes of what a person should be doing by this point in their life. You know, get a degree, keep a stable job, save for retirement. And I was going against all of those. So to someone else who is just following that path, which there's nothing wrong with, it might look like my situation is becoming like a disaster. I knew that the normal path wasn't what I needed, and I needed to do something my own way. And so I just trusted my ability to get where I needed to be, right? And also my mom always said was, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. So that was what I would take with me, is when things didn't make sense, was just, I'm following my passion and I'm right where I'm supposed to be. Everything else will either fall into place or it won't, and I'll get to that when I get to that. So it was kind of allowing life to do its thing and me accepting it. And if something felt right, follow it. If it didn't, leave it. Like, it really was that simple.
Let's go, mom. Let's go, mom. Right?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah. Sounds like a really powerful and positive influence.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, take us to SuperRare then. Take us to SuperRare, and my guess is fitting with the theme, right? Not comparing one platform to another, but it just becomes your natural expansion within the NFT space.
Yeah, so yeah, it was the natural expansion. And even after getting accepted into SuperRare, I still felt more connected to MakersPlace. I felt like I had met people through there. I was thankful for the way that they presented. You know, you could do collections, there was options, right? You could do open editions if you wanted. It felt like there was more pathways for me to explore. So I got accepted into SuperRare. I didn't mint anything on there a while because I was so attached to MakersPlace. But it was just expanding like my toolbox. And now I have access to SuperRare if I want to explore that. And then I have the Rareable, I have MakersPlace. So it was just sort of like tools that I could grab, open portal to more people. You know, when I posted that first piece on SuperRare, it connected me to new people that MakersPlace didn't. It all circles back to that Twitter community. So it was sort of like mint a piece here, see if I could find their Twitter, and then engage with them on Twitter. Find out, like, you know, their persona or their identity on SuperRare, what they're about, and then try and trace that back to Twitter and form a connection rather than just being it just on the platform.
So Twitter becomes the center of the ecosystem for you.
Absolutely, yeah.
It definitely seems like that's been the case, right? It seems like at least to this stage of where the NFT space is now, that 90% of the community exists on Twitter.
Yeah.
I want actually to take a little tangent off there. So Twitter, right? You mentioned Discord as well as being important to forming connections and joining some groups. Any other community based? Since I personally view you as someone who's excellent at understanding, one, the value of a community, contributing to a community, learning from the community, furthering yourself through a community. It's this very very intuitive skill set, just navigating those types of things. So with Twitter mentioned and Discord mentioned, any other useful community tools? Let's say if someone is listening to this and jumping in or doesn't necessarily have that sense of community, maybe just offering advice from, again, someone who I think has done that brilliantly.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to pretend that there's something better than Twitter, but the answer is just Twitter, right? Like, Twitter is it's the main headquarters of all of it. If you don't know where to start, just make a Twitter account, look through the NFT hashtag, follow people you like, and just be yourself. If you like their work, compliment them. If you like if you like the energy they're bringing, just compliment them, or just all your opinion. There's no harm in just putting yourself out there. There might be people who ignore you. There's going to be people who don't like you, right? That's the thing. So the more that you just put yourself into the space, the more opportunities are going to show up, the more connections you'll make. And even if you don't see or any result or grow a following, grow a community, even if none of those happen, it never hurts to plant the seed. It might take a year, 5 minutes, it might take 2 months, but it never hurts to plant the seed.
Never hurts to plant the seed. And you have that experience even pre-Twitter, right? Having that experience on YouTube, even spamming people's feeds, right?
Yeah.
And then having that kick back to you on Skype. So you already were laying that community groundwork even then.
And you just never know what's possible, right? Until it happens. Like everything's impossible until it happens. And so the more seeds that you plant, the more opportunities that might come your way in the future. And even if you even if nothing else, just being a part of the community on Twitter is priceless in itself. Like that is something that you can't make that up. You can't fake that. You can't stage it. It's so real, and the love is so apparent that people just want in that space. And all you have to just be yourself. Like it seems like it's a dream come true, which it really is.
Yeah. And there's still time, you know, looking at the evolution of social media platforms, you can see, you know, things do and things will change. I think it's important to also understand that, you know, but then there will be new forms of communication and new platforms. But it truly does feel like the intersection of what Twitter is and where the NFT space is. It's this beautiful, beautiful intersection. So I guess however it does change in the future, appreciating it for what it is right now.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I would say is if they're like newcomers, just express yourself on Twitter. And, you know, like if you're just starting out, tag NFT. Like it might seem cheesy at first, but there is no other way if you are just starting out, and there's no shame in trying to, you know, integrate yourself in the community. It just takes a little bit of effort and it takes some time, but everyone is so welcoming that within a matter of days, you'll probably find a group of people that be lifelong friends.
Yeah, it's very true. And I also like where you took that dialogue where it's be yourself, be your authentic self, and go in and contribute, right? Because I think the other side that we see sometimes is maybe someone, instead of contributing, who's just constantly interjecting, here's my work, here's my work, here's my work, here's my work.
Please buy.
which then might end up having the reverse effect, you know?
Yeah. But I mean, and I think that kind of goes with like a lot of community. There are always going to be, you know, there's two sides to every coin. So there's going to be the people who take, and there's going to be the people who give. But at least from my perspective, I mean, you kind of see what you choose to focus on. So I choose to focus on the people that are contributing to the community. So that's what I see mostly is I see a lot of contribution. I see support. I see people sharing each other's work. I see people, you know, connecting with other people. So while there is that people who sort of just interject, you also don't have to give your time to those people, and you can kind of respectfully say no and then just continue searching for your people.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to put it. And I think just flipping it around for someone else's perspective is to, you know, listen to Chewy. Like, listen to Chewy, that filter, right? That positive filter, because I think a lot of people have that on, and a lot of people are naturally gravitating to those who are furthering the conversation. And then counterintuitively, they're the people, like, I know for me, if I see someone contributing to the conversation, I might click through and see what they're all about. And then all of a sudden, if I click through to then I see their work, and then all of a sudden it trips off a certain sort of process.
Yeah, and that's what I mean with sort of, you never know what could happen. I mean, your page is now visible to everyone who's viewing the thread, right? Like someone clicks on your profile, they retweet a thing, people you follow now see it. Like it's just a giant butterfly effect, and you never know what's going to happen, but it goes just see. Even if you kind of eliminate the idea that you're going to get something out of it, you're still supporting that person that you were initially interacting with, because now bringing your following to their page, right? Like it's just a win-win.
Win-win, absolutely. SuperRare. So your first piece on SuperRare is everlasting. Talk about that.
So that is my, I think, right. It's what I call my friendship piece, right? So my best friend, lifelong best friend, he made the audio for that. And then I made the visual. And so that was a token to our friendship that sort of just everlasting on the blockchain now. Like there's a collab with me and my best friend, and it's there and everyone can see it and it will always be there. So that was what I wanted my Genesis SuperRare piece to be, was to sort of say thank you to the person who has motivated me for so long, who has given me the freedom to be myself without judgment. And so that's sort of like a token of gratitude to that relationship that we have that not everybody gets to experience.
It's amazing. So we got Chewy's mom, and now we have Chewy's best
Mhm.
friend immortalized on the blockchain. And let's fast forward a little bit more to another person. And that other person I want to get to is Defaced, because you have collaborated on a piece called Stardad.
Yes, yes.
You
Yeah, what were you going to say? Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, tell the story. Just tell the story.
Yeah, so I mean, he had reached out, asked to collab, and it was just like that. We just kind of did it. We sort of brainstormed a few ideas of what we wanted. And at the time, my style was sort of, distorted humans, gold, sort of mythical worlds. So he had made his Stardad, sent me the 3D object for it. Um, I I made a world, threw Stardad in there, shared everything, and sort of like a similar thing to my best friend and I. It immortalized two styles. So it was a time where collaborating was very beneficial to me. It opened me up to new sort of like styles and ways of approaching art. And so even though it was a brief time that I was working with Defaced, it had taught me a lot about the way he works, like what he looks at, what kind of things he's trying to enforce in his art. It opened more doors in my mind of what's possible. So it was another sort of pivotal moment of my first collab being minted on the blockchain with an artist that I love.
Yeah, shout out to Face, love Defaced. He's the third ever origin story, and I really enjoy collaborations where, given no prompting and no
Mhm.
context, you can look at a visual and immediately snap, say exactly who the two people, or more, who exactly the people involved in the collaboration were. And that to me is a
Yeah.
shining example of that type of a thing in practice.
Yeah, yeah, and I think collaborations in general, I hope to see more of those. I remember reading a thread about it as well, just sort of like benefits of collabs, not only in the NFT space, but I think it gets amplified in the NFT space, right? Like you were saying, you can identify the two artists, and it goes back to just a win-win situation, right? Like it connects his community with mine, and then you start to see people who are in both those communities, and it brings more connections. So not only does it connect Defaced and I, it connects people that he's friends with people that I'm friends, and now it's all sort of merging. So it just becomes that melting pot of community, and it just strengthens the ties between artists and community in general.
Yep. Win-win. Win-win all around. Especially from all of my experiences with each of you, just two
Mhm.
really, really solid human beings, two inspired human beings. Each of you like truly looking to get better every single day, and doing the thing and engaging with the community. I think just two again shining examples of that. So I've taken you on this bit of a chronology, right? But feel free here and
Mhm.
now, before we play a game, we're going to play that game really soon. But before we play that game, break from the chronology and take us anywhere that you want to, within the NFT space, something else you're working on. But what are you doing right now and you want the people to know about?
So right, Justin and I are working on this project called Upeka, and it is sort of that. I guess like essentially, it's a world to escape to. I remember at least I want to say it was December. I made this set of renders and I titled it "I made a world in case you need an escape." And it blew up. Like it got like 40,000 likes overnight. Like my phone was just destroyed from it. And so when I titled it World for You, something clicked in my head. Was that sort of with the pandemic is like people are all living this life, they're using television to escape, they're using art to escape. And so Justin and I wanted to create an actual world that you could go to and escape. So the overall thing is, you know, it's in tranquility. It's a bunch of floating islands in the sky. There's cherry blossom trees, birds flying, calm music, right? The list on. So what we wanted to do was create this giant world that people could go to, like spend an hour just away from life, you know, just enjoy yourself. You can meditate in there. You can do all sorts of stuff that just is aimed to instill peace into this chaotic life that we're still in the midst of. And a lot of people sort of push that to the back of their mind. No one wants to believe that we're in this chaotic mess, right? So we start looking for ways to escape from that. And not only does it offer peace for us, the creators, the people who are enjoying it as viewers, also bridges that gap of game development and NFT. So there's a way to make game development, implement it to the blockchain while all having sort of an aesthetic feel to it that an artist can bring. So going back to the collab, like an artist collabs with the game developer, and then we now have a merging of communities. And even if only one person accepts it, right, that's a win. Like if we get one person to say this is cool, like that has done more than what we did the day before. So it's sort of bridging a gap while also giving a new way of looking at NFTs, I guess.
So this world that you speak of, are there details surrounding it? What can we expect?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of the sculptures that I use in my art will be so 3D sculptures. I made a guy holding up the spawning island, and then the 9 Islands has a sculpture of mine that can be found. And then there's I use like hands a lot, so there's cupped hands holding up energy. So it's sort of just immortalizing the work that I've been doing for the last 6 or 7 months, putting it into a world and sort of like synthesizing the mindset as well as the interactability. Is like you can go see these things now. You can like go and I mean you can even jump them, you can run on them. It's sort of just like makes it more real, I guess. It becomes a thing you can go see and interact with, which I think is really cool.
Exciting, taking your art to truly the next level of interaction and gameplay.
Yeah, so there's like, we have some Easter eggs in there, so like a little scavenger hunt, there's caves. It's mainly just so to, in a way, it's to showcase, you know, my previous work and Justin's development skills, but another way it is to just offer people, you know, a new cool thing to explore. There's like podiums that you can sit and just look at the sky. The day will change, so when at night you'll need to turn on your flash and you'll have to go through the forest. So it's sort of just like an experience rather than just like a transaction based NFT. So like another way to just experience the NFT, experience the world, and not just click buy and now you have it, right? Another layer to all of it.
Yeah, I'm really fascinated. What I say often is I think that art can stand on its own. And I think that there are many forms of art that will stand on its own. There's always a need for an incredible visual. And from the perspective of a visual that's brought to light with raw emotion, all the way to a visual that's brought to life with incredible technical skill. And then in the middle, the merging of those two things. There's always going to be a place for that.
Right.
But now I believe we're at the juncture of this space where we're now seeing a lot of people push boundaries and test use cases and utility and gamification and world building, right? It's pretty unbelievable to see all these paths that are being blazed and to see what ends up sticking there, where people end up spending their time and like in this meditative sort of world with art all around and the day constantly changing and on down the line.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think sort of what sort of kickstarted it as well was I remember seeing some photographers wanting to get into the NFTs and sort of that uncertainty, right? They're like, do we belong here? And the answer is yes. Like
For
the
sure.
answer is just yes. Like there is place for everyone creatively. Like yeah, there's gamification, there's like the list goes on and on, but ultimately, yes, like the community is open and it might not stick right, but is the ideology of the NFT space offers all sorts of those things. And so this project also sort of says like, yes, you can do whatever you want. You can bring it to the space if done correctly or right or whatever. Like there is an option for that. And so sort of just feeling that sense of acceptance and saying all forms of mediums can be brought here. They might not all be treated the same from various communities, but there is space for them.
It's a great message. Chewy, I'm glad we're doing this. I'm very much I'm vibing with a lot of aspects of your personality, and I continue. I would have said this to anybody who asked prior to recording this origin story, but your presence sort of speaks for itself. It's like pay attention to how you comment and interact and the things you talk about, and even now that you hear it, that shines to me. I want to just give you a shout out for that. I think that, you know, if I were to hone in on a personality type that makes this space what it is, that makes this space as special as it is, I would hold your personality up as a shining example of that.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Ready to play a game?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, lightning round. Do you know the drill?
No.
All right. So the lightning round is this. I'm just going to throw some topics at you. They're going to be a lot of topics, you know, some that we've talked about already, some different ones. And the goal is just hot takes. So it's just first word that comes to mind, first phrase that comes to mind, first sentence that comes to mind. And we just keep things moving. If I say anything and it brings up something for you where you want to just like hit timeout, go on a complete tangent, you're able to do that too. But the heart of it is just keep it moving.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Here we go. Lightning round. Topic number 1, digital art.
For me, it's life.
Life.
It's everything.
Blockchain.
Revolutionary.
Defaced.
I don't even know how to put it. I mean, just composition and style mastery. Like everything about it is just fascinating.
Concept that you have not explored yet, but is on your bucket list.
I think making a around that initial incident, the accident. I think that is something I've been avoiding. I make pieces for it, but as far as the specific incident that's been on my list has not been addressed.
Interesting. You know what would be cool? Maybe I'm sure that what you just said has depth to it, and I don't even know where you'll take it. And that I'm here for it when the time is right. Even treating it not that, but going like to the lighter heart. Your first Instagram post, like a representation of what you were doing, right? Of what you were doing, but before that moment, to me, would also be really, really interesting.
That would. I've also thought about doing like I used to climb those power lines and we would just sit up there, is doing a piece like that of getting a guy, having him sit and looking down as if it were like a collab between my photography lens as well as my 3D render mindset. I think that would be a really cool idea.
I'm here for it, man. All right. Rareable.
Origin for me.
MakersPlace.
I think cementing sense of identity in the community.
SuperRare.
Confidence booster for sure. Accepted was like, okay, the things that I'm doing are valuable.
The last artwork that you saw that stopped you in your tracks.
Honestly, anything that Shams makes. I don't know if you're familiar with Shams smeccea. I think she makes is like almost life-changing for me. Like I wait for her to post her every day because it brings me so much inspiration.
Big shout out. Definite friend of Origin Stories, friend of a lot of friends who have been on Origin Stories. So yeah, Big shout out, smeccea.
Definitely.
All right. Last artwork that you saw that you thought to yourself, why don't more people know about this?
Oh, I can't remember their name. I'll have to do some. It was a couple days ago, and I remember just being on Twitter, looking for art, and there was no one paying attention to this piece. I'll have to go back and find it, but it was, I mean, just stunned. And no one was paying attention to it. And I remember, I think I even quoted it. I was like, everyone needs to look at this. Everyone stop what you're doing and look at this.
Let's earmark that together. And if you can send that to me when I put together the Twitter show notes, I will throw that in as its own post tacked onto that.
Okay.
Yeah,
definitely.
Matrix style, if you could insert a chip into your brain, it was totally painless and easy to do. And instantly you could acquire one new skill set and it would be perfect and spot on. And you could immediately integrate it with everything that makes you, you. What would you choose?
I don't know if I would choose anything. I mean, the idea of perfection to me is, it's not, and I like, flaws are what attract me. Like if something is perfect, it's hard for me to appreciate it because there's not that rawness to it. It's like the whole idea of like beauty to me is like the duality of like the flaws and perfection. And so if there's no flaws or no downsides, there's nothing to improve on, and so I have no interest.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I would want to be perfect at something or have a perfect skill set, because I feel like I'm lazy and just accept that it's perfect. And
okay, let me change the question, because it's interesting that you tackle like that. It makes sense to me, especially as someone like yourself who is you're like an acquirer of skill sets, and you go through your own process to explore and digest and incorporate. So let me phrase the question differently just for you. If you could pause time right now, freeze the NFT space, freeze Twitter, freeze Discord and beyond, and take as many days, weeks, months, or years as you wanted to, just to sit with something and learn it in your own context, at your own pace, with all of its imperfections, what would that thing be? If you could freeze time and jump off, do it, and then pick time right back up where it started.
Painting, 100%, like 100%. Even though I do digital 3D art, most of my inspiration comes from Renaissance era painting, right? Like Michelangelo, Sistine Chapel type of stuff. If I could ever do one thing, in which I don't think I make a Sistine Chapel because that's just crazy to me, that would be it. Like that would be it. It was to just be Michelangelo making Sistine. Like that's everything I wish for.
Amazing. And assume, I'll give you an extension in the lightning round now that we're going off on this tangent. Assume any medium is available, any medium of painting is available to you, the highest of high technical screens and tools, all the way to canvases, to walls, to chapels, to what would be your canvas? What would be your preferred canvas and tool set?
I think it would be sort of like a cathedral temple wall thing, like an experience where doorways have meanings, right? Like the where to meet and where their intersecting lines are, like that type of stuff. So I think a mixture between architecture and like painting on the walls and ceilings, and making it sort of like a experience itself that couldn't be achieved just on a flat canvas.
Chewy Stoll, creator of worlds. That would be a painting world, right? Yeah.
That would be incredible.
So, hey man, congratulations. You naturally crushed the lightning round. That was perfect. That was imperfectly perfect.
Nice. There we go.
Yeah. And now the grand question as we wrap your origin story, but what's next? I know you already launched into world building and where you're taking that, but maybe just take a step back, go broad, look past the day 241 of your everydays, progressing every day, learning every day, building worlds. Take us on down the line. What are your eyes on?
As far as like long-term goals is, I would love to have a house with people who are creatively different than me. So musicians, right? Movie makers, like all sorts of things that are creative, but not what I do, because I like to be in environments that I have no knowledge in, like sort of acquiring the skill sets. I like to learn about things that I know nothing about, because I mean, it's like magic to me. Like when a cinematographer is telling me about their workflow, it is like, I just get sucked up into it, and I can take things from it and apply it in my own lens. But definitely long term is working towards having a team of creatives that all specialize in a different medium or ecosystem in the creative world. And that way, if we wanted to collaborate on a project, we could have like a music maker, we could have make a film and then implement 3D art, right? Like the possibilities are endless. And then we would all push each other to make the best product could.
Amazing. To use a phrase from earlier that you said, a melting pot, creating a very unique melting pot of endless collaborative opportunities.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. That I think, because for me, it's important to be around creative people in general. I need people to, you know, challenge me, say, hey, this could be better. And even if I'm upset at first, the next day I'm grateful, because if sometimes we don't always get to live up to our own personal standards, and having that other person say, hey, I know you could do better, that really pushes me to do better.
Very, very appreciative of that. Try to gravitate to those people, even within this community, who do exactly that.
Definitely.
That positive push. Yeah.
Of course.
Chewy Stoll, this has been a pleasure. Origin story in the books, and I've started to have this dialogue with some, and I'm going to continue to perpetuate it because I truly do see this as where it's all going. In fact, I think it may have been BossLogic who suggested doing a milestone version. I think it was BossLogic, a milestone version, like accomplish something major, and even if you had an origin story, it becomes then like the milestone story, the milestone marker. So with everything I knew about you, with everything that I've learned about you and the people have learned about you today, I really hope to see you for a milestone story before long, because I have no doubt in my mind that you're on your way to many, many more milestones in the NFT space, beyond, who knows, but as the builder of worlds and seemingly the controller of your own destiny.
Yeah, and same thing, just pick a time, I'm there, you know, like I enjoy talking with you, and just like even just being in this space in general is, we make time for the things that are important, and having like talks like this, I believe, come before even my own creative journey. I think just sharing conversation of knowledge in this space is important. So if it ever comes up and you want to do another one, pick a time, I'm there. Simple.
Let's go. That time will come, my friend. I can't wait. For now, keep doing you, keep picking those skill sets up, expressing that emotion, right? Everything on behalf of putting that emotion, translating that emotion into that visual, into that imperfectly perfect visual.
Definitely.
We'll talk to you soon, man.
Thank you, RD. Take care.